Welcome everyone to another episode of Revolution Recap. The Revolution maintained their perfect home record in 2021 and held on to first place with a 3-1 win over New York Red Bulls. New England got goals from Gustavo Bou, Tayon Buchanan, and Adam Butska, while also benefiting from a first-half red card on Red Bulls defender Andres Reyes. I'm Greg Johnstone. Joining me today is Jake Catanese of the Bent Musket. Jake, how are you?
I'm good. We're here to talk about the 4-0 start of, not the Revolution, the Connecticut Sun, right? That's what we're here for?
Sure. That's okay. You know what? Good for them, though. Are you saying that I should be investing in a WNBA future of Connecticut Sun to win the WNBA final?
I'm not saying you should not be doing that. I would never do that for the Revs. Never do that for teams that I root for because reasons. But yeah, I'm just saying. Actually, the Sun are 5-0. They just won. I didn't realize they played today.
Well, life savings on the Connecticut Sun. You guys heard it here first. Get those tickets in now. Also joining us today, hopefully not a degenerate gambler, it's actually a new guest, Matt Zytka, president of the Midnight Riders. Matt, great to have you on. Welcome to the show. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly.
You did, yeah. You did a great job. Although it would have been an honor to join the great ranks of players who have had their names mispronounced on this program. But you did it right. So
you know what? This is a long show, Matt, and I'm 1 for 1 so far. But I'm still working on Traustason. That's really my head and my mouth are still confused at the spelling and the pronunciation of that game. Jake, I know you're still kind of Carlos Hill over there, so it's a long show. So I'm not counting this as a victory just yet. Matt, before we begin, I actually wanted to talk to you about how, you're president of the Midnight Riders. You're actually the first person from a supporters group to be on this show, or at least, a high-ranking member of a supporters group. I wanted to ask you about how you got involved in the Midnight Riders and what you guys at the Midnight Riders are doing right now. I know you have a Clean Sheets for Clean Sheets kind of fundraiser going on. So can you just talk about how you got involved in the Midnight Riders and your Clean Sheets program?
Yeah, so I've been a fan of the Revs since the team started when I was a small child. My parents started taking me to games around the time they started. I just always felt kind of drawn to the energy of the fort. And so as the years went on, I just inched closer and closer. And by the time I was a teenager, I was in the fort as much as possible. And then after college, became more formally involved with the Riders. And then all of a sudden, several years later, I found myself president. Not sure what happened. But we have this great pledge drive going. If you go to midnightriders.com, it's the first item right there at the top called Clean Sheets for Clean Sheets. And so you pledge a dollar amount for every clean sheet the Revs earn, and that money goes to Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless, a Bed for Every Child initiative, which is a really cool program. We're really proud of that one. That our 501c3 charitable organization has been running that for a couple of years now. It's been a big hit. So,
and as a pro Matt Turner podcast, we love Clean Sheets here. So even more reason to root for a clean sheet. So make sure you go check out the Midnight Riders at midnightriders.com. Check that out, and I'm sure it's also up on their social media as well. So Matt, since you're the new guy, I'll go to you first. What is your key takeaway from yesterday's 3-1 win against New York Red Bulls?
My key takeaway is Bou is back. Gustavo Bou just looked really confident and was just a little more involved with more facets of the game. Just looked comfortable in his role in a way that we haven't really seen so far this season. I feel like he just seemed a little disconnected from the rest of play. And in this game, he was really influential, even aside from the goal, which obviously was a big moment. So yeah, Bou looks good. That's really a really good sign because he's obviously a very streaky player. So hopefully they can ride that for a little while now.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting is that I think I kind of gave Gustavo Bou a hard time because he wasn't getting a lot of shots off. He wasn't being very much involved in the game, and he still only got 2 shots off in this game. And my previous take, which might be a little bit outdated now, and I'm kind of eating some crow on. I ate some crow on it from some people on social media, is that Gustavo Bou, you want him to take a lot of shots, and he still only had 2 shots in this game, but he had 7 key passes. He had an 81% pass accuracy, and Sean Donahue, my co-host, who is not here this week, tweeted out a stat that Gustavo Bou's expected assists over the past 2 years are, easily first on the team, expected assists above assists. And so I think I've come around in the past week, even before this game, that I might be underrating him as a passer and as someone who is able to move the ball and attack that well. Because normally I look at his pass accuracy, it's normally not very good. But he certainly seems to be doing very well. And yeah, yesterday against the New York Red Bulls, even before the red card, but also more so afterwards, once he had some space, once with the counterattacks, he was really hitting on all cylinders. 49 touches yesterday, a goal, an assist, an 8.78 who scored rating, probably man of the match. Jake, any thoughts on Gustavo Bou and Bou being back?
Yeah, I think it's nice to see Bou adjust to being the lone striker. I think against Atlanta in particular, I think he started the game up top by himself, and it didn't go very well. But Atlanta's very similar to Red Bulls. I think a very compact defensive team. So Bou being able to, particularly with more space after the red card, sort of open up passing lanes, work back to goal, something we haven't really seen him do that much. That's usually reserved for Adam Buksa's skill set. But to see Bou get involved, off the ball and in the possession game, which the Revolution were mostly dreadful in the first 30 minutes, very, very refreshing change of pace. And it really, gives Bruce a lot of options of, hey, I can play Bou up top by himself. I can play Buksa up top by himself. I can pair them together. Really, enhances the flexibility when both of those players are able to either work off the rest of the team or off of each other. And we've seen them kind of sort of do a little bit of both the past couple of weeks. And the Revs have paid dividends with 2 big wins.
Yep, and this 4-2-3-1 with Gustavo Bou has paid off the last 2 weeks, not just with Bou starting, but Adam Buksa coming off of the bench with 2 goals from Adam Buksa in the past 2 games, despite the limited minutes. That obviously is going to be adding a little bit more to the striker controversy and how to play your attackers. We got some questions. David Sibilian asks us, is Buksa better coming off the bench than starting? Is Bou playing well enough and is chemistry good enough to hold off Adam Buksa from starting? And then Misha also asks us, Buksa or Bou up top? Does Bou have and on top of that, does Bou have another place in the starting lineup? If not, up top at that striker position? Bruce Arena actually made some comments on 98.5 the other day where he mentioned that it sounds like they're going to be rotating players in and out. They might be doing some 1-striker formations, some 2-striker formations. But most importantly, they're going to have Carles Gil in the middle of the field. I know they've kind of shifted him in and out depending on what formation they're playing, but it sounds like Gil's in the center of the field, but it's still kind of up in the air over who's playing up top. So, Matt, I'll head to you. What do you think, as of now, is the solution for up top? Do you think it's Adam Buksa, Gustavo Bou? Do you think you play them together in a 2-striker formation? What's the answer?
I think it's Gustavo Bou for now, and I say that as one of the world's biggest Adam Buksa apologists, big Adam Buksa guy. But I mean, clearly Buksa coming off the bench is working well. I would, and yeah, the 4-4-2 setup just it was tough to generate chances so far this year. In that with Carles coming in from the right, it just the shape just wasn't sorting itself out in the way that it had last year when they played that sort of formation. So good adjustment by Arena. I would like to see them still both at the same time a couple of times, which I think we saw a little bit at the end of the game last night, where Bou was playing more as an inverted left winger and Buksa as a center forward. I think that could be a solution for how to get them both on the field at the same time. Obviously, you lose then either Traustason or Buchanan, but I think the schedule is going to get so dense after these international breaks that I think it'll kind of sort itself out. There'll be plenty of time to rotate and get everyone on the field and try these different things. But yeah, I think for now, I think Bou's the guy center forward, or at least, I mean, there's only one more game until things
that is true.
While, so at least for next week, I think we should start Bou again and then reconsider after that.
We're talking about the FC Cincinnati game, and to be honest with you, I think they could put Justin Rennicks out there, and we should score at least 3. So they could put me out there, and we should be scoring 3. So, Jake, well, I'll kick it to you. What do you think the solution is at striker for the foreseeable future?
I'm going to go back to the old wheelhouse here. It does not matter who's starting up top as long as Carlos Hill is playing in the middle of the field at my beloved center attacking midfield position. Edward Kizik can start up top. Renix can start up top. Bou, Buxa, Bunbury. Heck, bring Christian Pineda back. Put him straight there at number 9. It doesn't matter. As long as Gil is the one pulling the strings in the middle and the Revolution are able to break out in transition. I mean, we saw Bou and Buxa absolutely just torch that Red Bulls back line. I understand it's the 83rd minute. I understand Books has got fresh legs, but that was some pretty impressive breakaway speed there by Adam Books. I did not know that he had that in him, holding down that right trigger on that sprint button all the way to the middle of the field. So, I think combination wise, as long as if they're on the field together and they're combining, or if they're operating separately and one's coming off the bench, I think the rotation is going to be important to keep everyone healthy. And fresh going into the later stages. The schedule in after the break in June into July is quite brutal, and there's a bunch of road games coming up. So I think Bruce is going to have to really do a good job of balancing the starting lineup and then using his subs more effectively than he has been, Bruce, because Gil should have been off the field in the 80th minute. But I digress.
Yeah, we're foreshadowing another part. We had a question about that coming up, but let's take a step back because I do want to talk about something Matt touched on, which is Bou potentially as an inverted winger. And I kind of like that idea too, and I think we'll see him in that kind of role a little bit. And that kind of gets to Misha's question of, does Bou have another place in the starting lineup, if not up top? I think Bou is very dangerous away from goal. I know that it seems like the first few games, this first month, they've tried really to get Gustavo Bou closer to goal. And I think him kind of being further outside of the box. I think I've said this in the past few podcasts, but I'm not opposed to having him be that kind of, inverted winger, and kind of be a little bit further out and have Adam Buxa as your kind of natural center forward. And I think that's something that we will see eventually. I think that will probably get Gustavo Bou more shots, which I think will lead to more goals by him. But based on yesterday's game, which I'm not putting too much emphasis on because they did have a man advantage for 2/3 of the game, everything looked great yesterday. I don't think you can really complain too much about how Tejan or Traustason or Gustavo Bou played. So even though Adam Buxa does have 2 goals in the past 2 games, I think Gustavo Bou playing that center forward role, we're going to see that another week, see how it goes against Cincinnati. And I'm sure it'll have good results too. Everyone's playing really well. And actually, Cameron had another question. Cameron on Discord asked us, did the Revs finally have a selection issue with too many attackers? I think we'd all agree with that statement that they have too many cooks in the kitchen.
They've always had that issue.
Yeah, they've
always had that issue. It's always been you've got X number of positions for striker, 2 wingers, and Carlos in the middle. So you've got it's effectively 2 lineup problems. Who are your holding midfielders or center midfielders behind Carlos Hill, and then who are your 2 wingers and who's your striker up top? And if it's any combination of Buxa, Bou, Bunbury, McNamara's been closing out games on the left-hand side. There's so many options for the Revs, particularly off the bench. It's a tremendous problem to have, and that's the depth that we're going to lean on for the next 3 to 4 months, and hopefully keep that depth is what's going to keep us at the top of the standings from here on out. Yes, your stars are going to be the ones that get all the headlines, but the depth is the one that's going to give you the flexibility to, really control the tempo and the pace of the season from game to game.
I was going to say, I haven't even mentioned Teal Bunbury yet, and Teal Bunbury does still play soccer to the surprise of people at the Brotherly game. We've talked about, Bou is back. I'm really excited to talk about that. But Jake, I also want to talk about your key takeaway. What did you take away from yesterday's win?
I took away that the Iceman, Arnor Traustason, is on the score sheet with a pair of helpers. You can argue that the second one, he didn't really have a whole lot to do. Because it was all pretty much Buchanan. It was a one-man show down the left flank, but there's a lot of little subtle plays on that. Buchanan on the overload, Bou on the hold-up play, and then 3 runners into the box. And poor Red Bulls keeper leaning away from his near post. That's a rookie mistake. You can't do that. But I really enjoyed Traustason in particular. I thought it was one of his better games. As far as getting not just himself involved, but his teammates involved. I often have said the left flank is where a lot of Revs attacks end up going to die because the left flank just doesn't have the same support because Carlos Hill's on the other side of the field. So it's difficult for that flank to get involved when they're sort of isolated from your best player. But now that, Carlos is in the middle and the ball is switching all the time. Sometimes to the other team right away, but the ball is switching all over the place when the Revs get it back. It's a very, very high tempo kind of counterattacking sort of system, and I think that Arnold does a fairly good job at that. I don't think the passing numbers are always there, but the vision and the ideas are. And when you have a couple of strikers like Bou and Buxa and a playmaker like Carlos Gil, having a player with that kind of sort of ability and that sort of vision is a tremendous asset. And I think we're starting to see the chemistry from everyone involved play out here 2 months into the season.
Yeah, and in Traustason's case too, I feel like he needed this game. I feel like a lot of people were a little restless. I think last game, I believe it was last game, he scuffed the shot after Gustavo Bou kind of moved him into the penalty area, and he didn't get all of that shot, and probably should have been a goal. So I think for him to come out, get on the stat sheet with 2 assists in this game, even though as you said that Tejan assist, really that was Tejan's doing for most of it. But overall, a really, really good performance. 2 assists in 61 minutes, an 8.4 rating on FootMob. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good performance, and I think that's going to take some pressure off of his back. We talk about Buxa going a few games without scoring, and there's a lot of people that talk about if he looks frustrated, if he doesn't look comfortable out there. I think this was a game that Traustason needed as he adjusts to MLS. Matt, do you have any other thoughts on Traustason?
No, just I agree that the expectations were high. I think people were, I think, a little impatient with him for someone who didn't have a preseason, basically stepped off of the plane and onto the field for his first game. So I think we're finally starting to see him get used to his teammates and find the right spaces. So it's looking promising.
Yeah, that's a good point. He did not have a preseason, and unlike FIFA, there's a little bit of an adjustment time. The games aren't played on paper, so there's still a little bit of that. I mean, and we talked about Adam Buxa last year coming over in COVID. And really, I do believe that it took him, a few months to really adjust with all of the changes going on. I'm sure Traustason, even though, it's a normal quote unquote schedule, there's still a lot of challenges traveling to the United States, traveling internationally, and getting acquainted with a new team. So, very good point there. We did get a question from Jay Hondo who says, why can't Traustason, a right-footed player, play on the right, and Gil, a left-footed player, play on the left? Jake, I'm going to go to you first because I think you're going to be really angry about the suggestion to move Gil from the center. But why do you think that this wouldn't work? And actually, maybe I'll rephrase it. Would you rather see Traustason move to the right side?
Well, I mean, I think they do that a little bit. I mean, like you saw on Buchanan's goal, all 3 of those guys ended up basically being on the entire left flank. That was the overload that created the chaos that allowed Tajon Buchanan's one-on-one, victory and then subsequent goal. We can call it shoddy goalkeeping. We can call it Tajon's brilliance. Doesn't really matter. The players are going to move around. The starting formation is a guideline. It's not a set thing that's in stone. I think ideally you want Traustason to play on left. I think he's probably got the best service from that side of anyone not named Carlos Gil. And we've seen Buchanan pretty much favor the right-hand side. He prefers the right-hand side. I remember the disaster that was the Chicago game where he started on the left. That didn't really go all that well. So I think it's a matter of keeping people in their comfort zones. I think pretty much right now, the starting formation that you see, where the strikers are, where the wingers are, where Carlos Gil is, that's the comfort area for the Revolution. So it's not so much that they can't switch sides. It's that for the most part, it takes the Revs out of their comfort zone when they do switch. And if they are switching like that, it means that they're trying to either A, exploit something the other team is doing, or B, the other team is doing something that they're unhappy with. And then you're reacting to something else, which is usually not a good thing. So, I think as long as the Revolution keep it simple, play their style, which I'm sure we'll talk to about a little bit here, that's what's the key for the Revolution. It's not so much which side the wingers are, where the service is coming from. It's just a matter of their style, their counterattacks, and things like that.
Matt, anything to add on that point there?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It has a lot to do with just how certain wingers are deployed in the modern game, where it used to be that your outside midfielders would just kind of hug the sideline and whip in crosses, and a lot of teams just don't play like that anymore. So you do want the right-footed Traustason on the left, because when he's going out a defender, he's cutting in onto a stronger foot to make a key pass, potentially get assist, or if he wants to take a shot on goal, his body is already in a position to do that. The Revs aren't really a team that rely on crosses. But yeah, it's a type of players those players are, where they're more well-rounded playmakers, less just like bomb down the sideline and cross, like say Ethan Finley on Minnesota United, who is just extremely vertical. Like, you wouldn't want him playing on this weaker footed side, because he's not the kind of player who's going to cut into the middle of the field and try to make that final pass or take a shot. He's just trying to go straight down the sideline, whipping across. So it's a style thing. But yeah,
I'll also say too that, and I mentioned this before, but if you ask Bruce Arena about a formation in a press conference, he's going to roll his eyes at you and say, that's just how they start the game.
Isn't the opposite winger thing, like when you're, particularly for hockey, don't you want your left-handed shooter on the right and the right-handed shooter on the left specifically to be on that stronger side, on the forehand side of the shooting? So I think it is similar.
Yeah.
I think it's the same principle as that, where it doesn't really matter. You can shoot either way, but obviously the stronger foot does help.
We got some women's basketball and we got some hockey analysis in this podcast. We got a little bit of everything today.
I swear to God, if the Whalers don't get eliminated from the playoffs by Nashville, I'll be very upset at Nashville. It's one thing to beat my soccer team. It's another thing to allow the NHL team that shall not be named to advance in the playoffs.
Who are they playing, Nashville?
They're playing Nashville, yeah.
Well, go Carolina. But anyway.
How dare you, sir?
Ouch.
Going from ice hockey back to the ice man. The thing with Traustason is that he does kind of drift into the center areas too. And so I think he fits in, kind of touching to both of your points, that Traustason does kind of play that pinching into the center a lot, and he's kind of very flexible. And I think he allows Carles Gil to run out to the wing if Carles Gil wants to go out to that space. And I'm also very curious when Kristen Mafla ever gets healthy. I'm very curious to see how that dynamic works, where when you're going to have Mafla making overlapping runs, because even though, as you mentioned, Matt, even though wingers don't really go vertical, especially the way the Revs play, I would expect Christian Mafla to maybe run down into those corner areas and kick and crosses. And I think that him and Traustason, Tristan might be cutting inside to allow Mafla to make those runs. But we'll see if, again, that's a big if we ever see Mafla on the field. My podcast where I declared him diamond legs really aged poorly. That aged like milk. So I don't really have a big key takeaway, but I do want to talk about Carles Gil not coming off yesterday, because I thought that was a bit ridiculous. He went down the first time, looked a little bit concerning, seemed to have just shaken it off. It happens. Players get cramps. Then he went down a second time, and that's when my heart kind of sank. I thought a sub was very much necessary. I think that if you are up a man, you can probably hold off that, hold a 2-1 lead without Carles Gil on the field. I feel like you don't need him at that stage in the game. And if you do concede down a man, then you don't deserve the points anyway. Matt, were you having heart palpitations like me as well? Did you think Bruce Arena made the right decision, or where were you on that?
Oh, I was terrified, yeah. For the first time he grabbed his foot, I was like, let's get him out of here. I think Bruce was waiting for that third goal, and then that third goal came so late it didn't matter. But yeah, I think if they had scored the third goal, say the 60th minute, they would have been a little quicker to get Carlos out of there. But I think they really wanted that insurance goal, and it just a couple good saves, a couple bad finishes, and then
it felt like we were waiting on that third goal forever. And I'm sure Bruce Arena was like, "Well, the third one's coming around the corner," and so he was just giving Carlos a couple minutes more, a couple minutes more, and it kind of morphed into the whole game. Jake, what did you think? Did you think Gil should have been pulled off that game?
Yeah, I think the second he sort of pulled up on, I think it was about the 77th minute. I can't remember if it was Traustason and Bou, but basically there was a shot, and he was the one trailing in onto the back post. Once he pulled up from that, there's just no point in having him continue, because you're going to have 3 or 4 more of those type of breakaway runs. We see him do this every game. It's fantastic. Where he gets the ball in the middle of 80 yards. There's one defender who he completely not suitable for work, undresses in the middle of the field, and we play gifs of that all week until he does it again the following week. We didn't need to see that this week. The Revolution had that game in hand. You can absolutely lose Carles Gil for a month in the middle of summer. That's gonna cost you points. If this knock turns into anything substantial, he took a very, very hard step from on Andres Reyes in the 38th minute that drew the second yellow into the red card for that defender. And, that was the first thing that I was thinking of. Either it's the old injury or it's, hey, after being stepped on for 75 minutes, it's time to get Carlos Hill off the field. And that's how you protect him late in games from those types of blows, by giving him those few minute spells. And you have the midfield depth and the striker depth to make it work without him for 10 or 15 minutes.
And one thing that the second time, it's worth noting, the second time he went down, it was non-contact, which is usually a really bad sign.
Yep.
So I think that was another thing that's worth mentioning, is that he went down really untouched and seemingly shook it off. Maybe just a cramp or something like that. Bruce Arena said after the game, he talked to Carlos Hill. He's fine. Seems like Carlos Hill was also shaking off a potential sub. I think they said that on the broadcast yesterday, that Carlos Hill was not even looking over. He kind of shook him off. Christian Matthews asked us on Twitter, how worried should we be about a serious heel injury? So even though Bruce Arena said, no, he's fine, he should be good to go, are we worried? Jake, I'm going to ask you, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you that something's wrong here?
I mean, long term, I'm not worried. I mean, in the middle of the game, I'd say it was about an 8, which for me would have been, I don't care if Carlos Hill wants to stay on the field. I'm the head coach. I'm taking him off. Long term, if he says he's fine, it's just, regular knock, or just, a little bit of a bruise or something from, getting stepped on one of the, 30 times it happens a game, then I'm only at a 3. But the way that you keep this in check from game to game is Carlos Hill does not need to play 90 minutes every game. Once you've got the game in hand, that's how you protect your stars. You get them off, you get them a few minutes of extra rest, and you bring in, other guys to help close out the game. That's why you have Bunbury coming off the bench to just press the snot out of everyone. Tommy McNamara, same thing. Scotty Caldwell can't even find the field. And this is a team that's bad in possession. You'd think you'd want your possession guys on the field late to help close out games and things like that. So, the Revolution have the tools to make this work. And I'm going to keep harping on this until Bruce doesn't annoy me in the final 15 minutes of a game. I swear it'll happen once this year. It'll happen once.
Matt, how worried are you about a serious Carlos Hill injury?
Coming out of this game, I'm not worried that his little knocks really amount to much. If anyone saw his girlfriend's Instagram today, Carlos looks pretty fine. Doesn't seem too stressed out. So, no, but in the bigger picture, I think that is a concern. Is managing his minutes coming off a year where he was injured, and just keeping him away from just brutish behavior by opponents. I feel like the word is out that if you're playing the Revs, the game plan is just to kick Carlos Hill over and over and over. And so it'd be nice if they could spell him for a little bit and save him a few of those kicks to the shins that every opponent's defensive midfielder is aiming for this season. If
you can't beat him, beat him. But and one thing I think if my worry level is probably around a 2 or 3, like you guys too. It's not past Bruce Arena to downplay something and then it comes out later that it's something big down the road. But if Carlos Hill is deking someone in stoppage time like he did last night on one good leg, that's pretty impressive. So I think what we saw from him in the final minutes was pretty good. He seems to be fine. I'm full trust in the Revolution. I think after having him out for most of the season last year, they would know that if there is something wrong, they won't mess around. But I expect him to be in the starting lineup next week. Maybe if they build up a lead against Cincinnati, which they should, knock on wood. Maybe we see 60 minutes out of Carlos Hill going into the international break, but who knows? We do have some questions here about the central midfield. The attack is not the only area with some, controversies. So last night we saw Kaptoum back in the lineup. Maciel was not in the 18. I don't know if actually I missed it. Can one of you guys tell me why was Maciel not in the 18? Was it injury, or do you guys know?
Offhand, I don't know.
I didn't see anything,
okay.
But I was out. Yeah, I was in the tailgate lot, so I wasn't really following too closely what was going on around the lineup.
I probably should know that as the person who was preparing this podcast, but I failed at my job this week. I apologize. But Maciel not in the 18 this week. Kaptoum back in. Seemed to have a pretty good game. So Randy asks us, what's our best central midfield pairing between Polster, Kaptoum, and Maciel? He says he leans between Maciel and Polster. And then also David Sibilian asks us our thoughts on Kaptoum. So Matt, I'll give you the question here. What's our best central midfield pairing, and what do you think of Kaptoum after his performance yesterday?
Yeah, Kaptoum looked fine. There was no glaring mistakes, which I think is what you're looking for from the player next to Polster. Just smart passing, good passing. Though I still think Polster and Maciel might actually end up being our best center midfield pairing when all things are said and done. We'll see. I mean, Kaptoum's still not fully fit, so maybe next week will be this big breakout performance from him in a way that we're not expecting. Well, yeah, I liked what I saw, but I really liked Maciel. So Maciel's still my preferred partner for Polster at the moment.
Jake, what's your preferred pairing in the central midfield?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if I necessarily have one yet. I mean, obviously, it's very clear that Matt Polster has come in and pretty much solidified his spot, which is, again, a tremendous little emergency signing from last year, and it's doing wonders still for the Revolution. I think it's sort of just riding sort of the informed hand, very similar to the strikers. You've got several good options at that spot. Luis Casado hasn't also gotten a lot of minutes yet. Scotty Caldwell yet to see the field in 2021, which is stunning to me. There's a lot of good options there, and whether it's a platoon between Kaptoum and Maciel alternating between starts, I think you're going to see, for the most part, that spot do exactly what it's been doing. Recycle the ball, good smart passes, a lot of recoveries, a lot of sticking a lot of foots in, winning some duels, but nothing egregious. Very let Polster be the more aggressive of the two holding midfield or center midfield spots, and have that sort of be the partner one. Maybe that's the person that stays back. Let Polster range forward, or vice versa. There's nothing. That's not a position that needs to do anything more than it's already been doing. It is as long as that spot is playing that support role, moving the ball around effectively. That's what the Revolution need from that spot, because they're not a great possession team. There's a lot of bad passing numbers when you look at the Revolution, particularly from the attackers. A lot of the wingers, Traustason, Buchanan, I think we're below 60%. So you need those holding midfielders, those center midfielders, to be effective at passing the ball. As long as someone's doing that, I don't really think it matters who's in that spot.
Well, you're leading into the stat that I found this week that it might be outdated because this is before this week's game. But Maciel, if you don't follow us on Twitter, you missed this neat little stat. But Maciel, through last week, had a 92.22% pass accuracy, 154 for 167 through his first 4 games, 6th best pass accuracy in MLS of people who've attempted 100 passes, and 4th best among players who have attempted 150 passes. So Maciel at a 92% clip in pass accuracy is a very, very solid possession midfielder from what we've seen so far. Again, short sample size, 4 games. And Kaptoum yesterday, I think he had an 87% pass accuracy clip. Also very good on the ball, I'm sure. But I think I'm leaning towards a Matt Polster, Maciel pairing, because I think I've been a little bit more impressed with Maciel so far than I've been with Kaptoum. I do think Kaptoum does have a role on the team. And we've talked about rotation. We're going to talk about how dense the schedule is. So we're going to see some rotation. But it's going to be a bit of a competition between those guys, and I think it's wide open, to be honest with you. I've really been impressed with what I've seen from Maciel. Hopefully he's not hurt. Hopefully, I know he missed that first game, so hopefully it's a minor injury, but yeah, I think Maciel Polster is the way to go. It's interesting too, because I think we all in agreement that Polster has locked down his spot. Does anyone think that we're going to see someone dethrone Polster anytime soon?
I would not expect to see that. No, Polster's looked really solid. There's not a lot of players on the roster that are the same sort of style of player. I guess Caicedo would be the closest, but yeah, Polster looks really good.
No, yeah, I think it's more of like, at some point I would like Polster to get some rest. Whether that's Tommy Mack gets a start. I think Tommy Mack and Caicedo would be the most comparable to that, more quote unquote, I don't want to say enforcer, but that more I can eat this yellow card and make that I'm here kind of sort of holding midfielder type. And I think at some point, Matt Polster shouldn't be playing, 6,000 minutes this year, as much as, impressive as it is every time Andrew Farrell does it. But yeah, I think, you have this depth. I keep harping on this. You have this depth. You should utilize this depth. And whether that's week to week, you give the wingers or the fullbacks some breaks. One week you're focusing more on the center forwards, and the holding midfield is just making sure that all of your groupings week in, week out are rested, fully fit. Nobody's carrying knocks. If Maciel had any sort of little maybe I had a little bit of a knock, that's okay. We've got 4 other guys who can do what you do. Maybe not as well, but pretty darn close. We don't need you this week. You get healthy. Next guy goes in. The Revolution can afford to do that from week to week because of the depth that they have. So if that means Polster has to get a spell and take a week off, that's fine. We're more than capable of handling that, and giving guys the week off that they need for rest here and there.
Yeah, I was going to say, outside of rest, I'm not sure why you would sit Polster at this point, because he's been very good this season. I think that's been a home run acquisition for Bruce Arena so far. Arguably, well, no, Gustavo Bou, but up there as one of his best acquisitions so far. Another person, while we're talking about depth, rotation, and acquisitions by Bruce Arena, we got to talk a little bit about John Bell earning his 3rd consecutive start here. There's a real mystery on what exactly is going on with Henry Kessler. Rally Revs fan asks us that Captain Obvious question: what is happening with Kessler? Rotation, rest, or something behind the scenes? So let me give you Bruce Arena's answer, because Seth McComber of the Bent Musket asked him this yesterday. Arena said, first of all, we wanted to give him a chance in the Philadelphia game. So we wanted to give him that chance. We've talked for sure about having 3 or 4 center backs that can play center, in that position, center back. So we've given John a chance. He's played well. He's done well defensively. He's a good passer of the ball. We've got to get Henry back in the rotation a bit as well, because we think between those players, we have to have them all ready to play this year. We've made progress in getting John started now. We've got to keep Henry going, get his confidence back, and get him on the field as well. So Bruce was asked this midweek. He kind of basically said they want to develop 3 players, and they wanted to get John back-to-back starts to kind of get him accustomed to that schedule. Then John earned that 3rd start here, which I think is kind of raising some alarm bells, because 3 starts in a row seems like John Bell has replaced Henry Kessler in the starting lineup. So Matt, I'll go to you first. Obviously, we don't have any concrete evidence of what exactly is going here, but what do you think is going on here? Do you think that this is just a matter of rotation and developing John Bell like Bruce Arena says, or do you think that potentially Henry Kessler is hurt and or has lost his spot?
I think it was definitely initially a rotation thing, but I think John Bell was just a little too good. And now Bruce doesn't want to take him off quite yet. It's kind of riding the hot hand like we've suggested with some other positions. I do think Kessler will be back in the starting lineup fairly soon. In the same way, he's talking about building up Kessler's confidence after the spell. I think it would be a dagger to Bell's confidence, I think, to be taken out after a couple of really stellar performances in his first few professional games at the top level here. But yeah, I think having all 3 as viable options will be big going forward when the schedule gets wackier after this break.
Jake, what are your thoughts? Is there something deeper happening here, or you think this is just a matter of adding to the rotation and getting John Bell accustomed to MLS minutes?
I think the answer. I think it's a yes to both questions. I think John Bell, from an athletic standpoint, the Revolution, if we have not forgotten, are a horrendous set-piece defensive team, and they do not have a lot of people who are very good or capable of getting up in the air and heading soccer balls away from Matt Turner's goal. John Bell is one of those people who can do that. I don't want to say that he was the one who was quote unquote beat on the header in the 9th minute, but he was the closest guy there. Then Reyes just makes a better run and head at the ball. But John Bell is there because he can get up and he can head the ball, and he's very good at doing that. And he's improving on a lot of things very, very quickly. Just as much as we talked about Kessler really adapting to the game as a rookie, John Bell is doing the exact same thing. This year. I don't think it's a knock on Kessler in any way or his skill or ability or coming off the Olympics. I think just simply John Bell right now is just what the Revolution defense needs more of. As long as John Bell can keep up the passing numbers and the distribution, not make any glaring mistakes, he can stay in the lineup. The Revs back line, is what it is. There's not a lot of extras there. It's 4 draft picks, 5 draft picks, if we want to count Kessler in that group, and that's, we're going to trot out that group for the most part week in and week out, unless Mafla comes back. Buchanan gets a start at right back every now and again to make it 6 draft picks and Christian Mafla. So it's, I think that's really what it is that I think that's right. I think for a certain aspect, Bell has kept his job and he's earned the ability to continue to start. And I think he offers the Revolution backline something that Kessler and Farrell just simply don't do as well as he does. And as long as he can maintain some of the other things just as well as Kessler and Farrell can do, distribution and things like that, he can stay on the field. And it's not going to cost the Rebs anything. It just means you probably have to figure a way how to get Kessler on the field. Does that mean Andrew Farrell gets a rest every now and again? Something like that.
Yeah, I think Bruce Arena really values Farrell's leadership. Otherwise, maybe we would have already seen a Kessler-Bell pairing. But obviously, when you do that, you have 4 very young players across the back line. So I think Bruce would be reluctant to take out Farrell because he's such a leader there. Though it would be fun to watch such a young center back pairing as Kessler and Bell. Maybe we'll throw that out against Cincinnati, since Cincinnati's a fail team and a meme team, and it's a good opportunity to throw out a young back line.
I would love to see a center back pairing of 2 players who were selected in the 2020 MLS Super Draft. Hold down a clean sheet against the 5th most expensive team in MLS. That would be a really fun thing to watch. Matt, to your point, actually, I think Bruce Arena, I don't know if it was on 98.5 or if it was during the midweek press conference, but someone kind of asked about Farrell and kind of this center back rotation. And basically, he said that where usually when you have young center backs, you want to pair them with a more experienced player like Farrell. So I think your point is 100% correct and valid that, when you're getting John Bell accustomed to starting in MLS, and you want Andrew Farrell, the veteran, there to help and guide him, because there's going to be some communication that's along that back line, and you need as much experience as possible. Real quick, Henry Kessler or John Bell next week? Let's assume Andrew Farrell is starting. Actually, let's not. What do you think is the center back pairing? You think we're going to see a John Bell, Henry Kessler pairing? What do you guys think we're going to see next week?
I think we'll see Bell and Farrell again, but I really want to see Bell and Kessler for this game, just to see what that looks like. But I think it'll be the same as what we've done the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Bruce plays the hot hand, so I would not be shocked to see the exact same pairing, and I think that's just going to kind of add fuel to this fire of if Henry Kessler has been benched. But getting back to your point, Matt, too, I can't imagine Henry Kessler is going to go the rest of the year without seeing minutes just because of how well he played last year. I don't think he's even done anything. It's not like he's been turning in poor performances either. So unless there's an issue that we know about, I think this is, I'm going to take Bruce's word, assume that this is just John Bell getting minutes, establishing a third center back, which the team did lack last year. And that's more or less all that is. And I'm going to try not to look into it, but it sure is tempting to, especially if John Bell gets to start next week.
And especially this is the more favorable part of the Revolution schedule. So if you're able to get John Bell that experience and rack up wins before the schedule turns to absolute ridiculously levels of hard, this is the time to do it right before the international break here. Why do we have an international break for Cotton Bowl and the Euros and we don't have one for the Gold Cup? I'm confused on that.
Send that letter to Garber. Amen.
All right, whatever.
One more note too, while we're talking about Andrew Farrell, the Revs Communications sent out their post-game notes, and it did note that Andrew Farrell is now tied for 4th in team history in appearances. He now has 246, tying Chris Neary, and Andrew Farrell has also passed Jay Heaps for 3rd most minutes played on the team. So some pretty crazy numbers. Wow. Andrew Farrell still looking to shatter those records potentially before he turns 31 years old.
He could do it. He could do it.
This kind of gets back to the attacking question. Probably should have asked this one a little bit earlier in the podcast, but Revs fan /Bostan on Twitter asked us, what formation should we go with? A 3-4-1-2, a 4-4-2, a 4-2-3-1? What formation do you guys think? Obviously, this goes with what personnel we have lined up, but personally, I don't think the 4-4-2 kind of worked. I think we kind of touched on that earlier. I think that 4-2-3-1 works. Because you have Carles Gil in the center. I guess you could run out a 3-4-2. Oh boy, I'm getting all my numbers mixed up. A 3-4-1-2. I guess personnel still kind of matches there. But I don't know. I like playing 4 in the back, so I'm going to go with a 4-2-3-1. What do you guys think?
I think so. Yeah, I've seen that the 3-4-2-1 thrown around on Twitter a lot, and it's fun to think about because it does make the center back conversation kind of solve itself. You just put all 3 there. The problem is there's no left wing back on this team. People in their starting 11 graphics they were put in Traustason or something. It's that's a situation where someone's right-footedness would become a problem if you had to play as a wing back and be the only width for the whole field on that side. And unless Mafla is healthy and very fit, I don't think there's really a player on the roster who would makes sense as a left wing back in a 3-person / 5-person back line. So I don't think we're going to see that, even though it would be cool to see all three of our thriving center backs on the field at once. But yeah, the 4-2-3-1 it clearly puts the most amount of players in their best positions, and yeah, has just looked best so far.
How many super draft center backs can we get in that back line?
Right.
Jake,
Let's check the record.
Sorry, Jake. What formation would you want to go with?
No, I mean the 4-2-3-1 works. It's the best personnel. I would still like to see at some point, maybe in the semi-friendly postage stamp confines of Yankee Stadium, a diamond midfield where you do put Bou and Bouks up top, and you figure out, okay, the width is gone because the field is too darn small. Let's get all of our center midfielders out there behind, Carlos Heel at some formation, put both strikers up front, and let's just go have fun for 60 minutes and see if it works, and then adjust and flip something around. I think what I'd like to see more from Bruce when the situation calls for it, the Atlanta game where we were terrible and needed a late winner, things like that where it's not working, but we can change around our personnel and change around our formations and start, making the other team work a lot harder than they should be and really change the game that way. We have the dynamics to do that. I haven't seen New England do that yet this year. They haven't really had to. They've sort of been patient, use their big guys off the bench, let Adam, if you've got someone like Adam Buksa coming off the bench scoring goals, that's going to be a formula for success because you can't have Bou and Buksa start with the one lone striker up top at the same position. So I think there's a balance the Revolution are still searching for, and I think later on you'll see the balance of, hey, we can go, 5 at the back, add in Henry Kessler or John Bell late, go, have a flat 5, have an extra holding midfielder, things like that I think you'll see the Revolution do later on when they're trying to hold on to games, or vice versa, chase games, drop a defender, add another winger up top and start, creating some chaos.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. And just to add on to the Christian Mafla update, I know I've been taking some shots at his unavailability, but Bruce did say this week that he is healthy. He's working on his fitness, and they are hoping he is back in June. So hopefully the international break is coming at a good time for him. I didn't hate him in his first appearance. I thought he was pretty good. So maybe this equation kind of changes when we see a little bit more from Christian Mafla, but we'll have to wait until June to figure out those answers. Moving on to some questions on Discord and Twitter. Cleggy on Discord asks us, do you think Matt Turner or Tajon Buchanan gets the call for the Gold Cup? Jake, do you like their chances on seeing some revs at the Gold Cup this year?
I absolutely do. I think Tajon Buchanan, coming off his Olympic run, absolutely deserves a shot with Canada. I don't know Canada's full depth chart offhand right now. I know they're a lot better than where they were a handful of years ago when they were a dreadful national team side. But I think it's very likely that Buchanan gets a run out and sees a handful of minutes, probably off the bench. If Matt Turner goes, I don't know if he'd be the starter or the number 2. It really depends on what Zach Steffen's availability is, or
I don't believe Stefan would be available for Gold Cup.
That's sort of the thing. So that's sort of the question now is Matt Turner, if you're the U.S., if you're going with a more MLS roster, is Zach Turner your number 1? Are you bringing over Ethan Horvath? It really depends on what the roster management is. Is it more of a European-based roster? Is it more of an MLS-based roster? We could see an extended run of Brad Knighton in goal, which I mean, is something we haven't seen in a while, but Brad Knighton's as capable of a backup as there is in MLS. Guy who's got, I think, over 150 starts, a decent number of those with the Revs. So, I think the Revolution are well equipped to at least, when you're losing Matt Turner or Andre Blake. Obviously, there's a step down, but not necessarily, I think, as significant a one as people are going to think with Brad Knighton in net. I'd be pretty okay with that for on and off, a little platoon there without Matt Turner, but I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Matt Turner in net. I really think he has a chance to solidify himself as the number 2 or number 3 keeper for the World Cup, which I think is the bigger prize here.
Wait, how many starts did you say Brad Knighton has? Did you?
I thought he had like 150.
I think he has hang on. This is a Googling.
In his career?
I think that's way wrong.
Yeah, career.
Yeah,
career.
because he has a few with Philly and Vancouver also.
72.
I'm sorry.
72. All right, you doubled it.
Oh, you know what? I was you know what? I think I was counting a whole bunch in the USL as well. So that might be throwing off the numbers here.
Not to call you out, but you threw out that number and it kind of blew my mind. And I started doing math, and I'm like, either you're looking at the wrong number or you're.
I am looking at the wrong. I think I'm looking at his career totals, not his MLS totals. So I think that's a bad job I made there. I'm sorry.
You might be looking at goals allowed, but anyway, I digress.
No, it's not that bad.
Matt, let's pulling back in. Turner or Tayon, do you think they're going to get the call at the Gold Cup?
I do, yeah. I mean, but like Jake said, Canada's roster is looking better than it has in a while, but I do think for the Gold Cup, Tajon will find his way onto that roster. He's just been really good, and especially good for Canada. He was awesome with the U23s and Olympic qualifying. And I would be shocked if Matt Turner isn't the starting goalkeeper for the U.S. in the Gold Cup. Stephan's been sort of the go-to for most of these sort of European-based friendlies. So there hasn't been a ton of time for Berhalter to look at Turner, and so I feel like the Gold Cup is going to be the perfect opportunity for Berhalter to really get to know Matt Turner and figure out where he puts Matt Turner in the pecking order, which I think should be number one, but I'm not Greg Berhalter, so I'll leave that to him.
I also feel like there's a lot of pressure on Matt Turner, too. Not that I'm an expert on the United States men's national team, but at 26 years old, I feel like Matt Turner got a late jump to the U.S. National team pool. He had that PK save against Trinidad and Tobago. I feel like this is a very important moment for him to get that experience, too. So I think they will bring him in because I think if there's ever a time to test Matt Turner and to see if he can be elevated to that number one role, I think that this is the tournament to do it at. And if they don't do it, if he does not get a call, I'm very, very concerned. If he doesn't get playing, if he does get the call up, if he gets a call up and he doesn't play, I'm very concerned about his future with the United States. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. I fully expect them both to get the call too. So we'll find out. Macho on Discord asks us, is Fortress Foxboro back? Matt, is Fortress Foxboro back? Oh, I can't talk tonight. Hang on, let me try again. Hang on.
All right.
The power of editing. I'm going to forget to edit this out later so all our listeners can laugh at me. But Matt, oh, jeez. You know the question. Never mind.
It's going great.
Is Fortress Foxboro back?
I'm kidding. Fortress Foxboro is absolutely back, yes. There's just something about the weirdness of Gillette Stadium when there are people in there. It's just the Revs really feed off it, and they're just unbeatable in Foxboro. I'd like to take credit, but I don't know how much I can take credit.
Oh, take all the credit. Take all the credit.
Okay. It's all because of the supporters groups, yes. But yes, Fortress Foxboro is indeed back. No one's coming in here and winning. As
one of the co-hosts of one of the top Revolution podcasts, I say that this entirely is because of the supporter groups and the return to Foxboro and to Gillette Stadium. And once all restrictions are lifted, I think the Revolution are become even more unbeatable at home, just because they feed off of that fan support. Jake, I assume you have no disagreements there.
No, absolutely not. There was an interesting statistic. I think it was from Jeff Lemieux. Last year at home, the Revolution in like 10 games only had like 11 points total in Gillette. Or at home, I'm not really sure if they counted the MLS Cup as back home games. But yeah, 4-0 at home already is that's again, you always, the old adage, win your home games, get some points on the road. You're going to advance in qualifying. You're going to advance in the regular season, etc. The Revolution, what the league does not want to see is, we have to go into Revolution Stadium and Gillette Stadium and beat the Revolution. This is going to suck, and that's a bad news for the rest of the league because they already hate playing at Gillette. Now they're going to be playing at a Gillette Stadium with an informed team and boisterous as we can crowd in the friendly large confines of 80,000, 70,000 seat. Stadium?
I think it's like
68,
500 or something. Yeah, it changed when they built the bar on the other end there. I'm not sure what it is now exactly.
I have no idea. I'm not a Patriots fan. I have no idea.
I think the real question here is, let's say hypothetically the Revs go perfect at home, no ties, no losses. Just every game at Gillette Stadium is a win. and obviously that is all due to the supporters groups. Matt, are you going to nominate yourself for Midnight Riders Man of the Year? I think you have to.
Yeah, if the voting worked that way, I absolutely would. But unfortunately, we that award is based on weekly man out of the match voting, so I don't think I'd be able to rack up enough points over the course of the season to contend with some of the players on the team.
I tried.
But I mean, if we're winning that many home games, we'll probably win the Supporters Shield, which we do get to keep. So that's even better.
Yeah, a small consolation prize. I'm sure you guys will be happy with. TSB11 on Discord says, another 30 minutes of sleepwalking to start a match. Do we just need someone to murder Matt Polster every game in order to play with passion? Jake, I'm gonna. All
right, let's
go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk about the 5-minute boarding major here for just a second. We'll get on to the larger point. I am okay with that only being a yellow card. It looks a lot worse than it is because there are boards. Mr. Reyes, very aware. I don't know why he needs to shove someone in the back that hard on the sideline with the ball basically already out of bounds. I don't get it. I've never gotten it. I didn't understand the second. It's just the same decision making with the second yellow card. You don't need to do either of those things. I understand you want to be aggressive. You're very excited. You've scored a goal. You have a lead. You have to lead at Gillette Stadium, and in 7 minutes, you helped your team throw it all away by getting yourself sent off and allowing a goal. So we're gonna move on past that. I said this in my 3 Thoughts article earlier today. I forget when I published it. The Revolution are a bad possession team. They are going to have bad starts. They turn the ball over a lot, particularly early in the games. They are trying to get forward and counterattack, and you're going to see a lot of sloppy possession and sloppy passes and giveaways, and it's going to be very, very frustrating. Until you get that one killer pass from Traustason to Bou, and then the game is tied or the go-ahead goal is scored, and then all is fine. But you have to wait for that one moment on the attack to wake up. It's not so much that you need to wait for someone to, murder Matt Polster or foul Carlos Hill. No, you don't need that. What you need is the attack to sort itself out. And you'd like that to happen a lot earlier than the 30th minute. You'd like to happen a lot earlier than 20 minutes in Colorado. And you don't want to see those kind of starts. You don't want to always be trailing the first half and have to work your way back. You want to get the game, grab it by the horns, go up in front, and control the pace and tempo of the game, and then find your insurance goal a lot sooner as well. Revolution are finding their insurance goals 80th minute and onward. They need to be finding that goal around the hour mark, 70th minute, and that'll help again with the same things of, okay, now the game's away, we can pull off Bou or Buxa or Gil or Heel and all those types of things, and yeah, it's all of that sort of flows into one cycle. But yes, no, it's very frustrating the first 30 minutes. But you're going to have to live with it. It's just something we're going to do, I think, a lot this year.
Matt, what are your takes away from the slow start from the Revolution?
Yeah, I think Jake would be onto something in terms of just style of play and it taking a little while to get the wheels turning just because they're not that sort of possession-y team. But I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that what we saw in the second half, when they knew they were up a player and could be more confident getting numbers for it, I'm hoping that energy rolls over to future games. Because they had a confidence in their ability to generate chances that we haven't really seen for 90 minutes. And maybe them just playing that way will trigger something in them and remind them that they're all very good at soccer and should really be on the front foot from minute one in terms of the talent level on the team.
It's something Bruce stresses too. I think he said, I think when he first came into the Revs, he had some sort of mantra that was like first tackle, first shot, first goal, or something to that effect. But they've seemed to play it a little flat too. So maybe conceding at home against the Red Bulls, in 10 minutes is a big wake up call. They don't seem to be falling behind, which is positive. I mean, outside of the Chicago game, which was a complete disaster, I don't think they're conceding much. So I guess I got to give it to them a little bit there. But yeah, this is a team that we expect to be kind of a high flying offense that scores early and often. And I'm not sure we've seen that. Getting back to the murdering of Matt Polster, Jake, I got to ask you about Bruce. Bruce said after the game he was fine with the murder being a yellow card. Are you okay with the yellow card, or do you think that was a straight red?
No, I mean, certainly again, it looks a lot worse because of the boards. Even the NHL playoff officials are going to give that as a 5-minute boarding major, I would hope. It's more. It's not so much that there's an intent or recklessness. It's just unnecessary. It's careless. In the definition of the laws, careless is more defined as you don't really need to do that. You weren't doing it dangerously. You were just dumb or lazy or whatever word you want to use. And it just so happened there was enough force behind it that, the only place Matt can go 3 feet away is into an ad board. And I hate to say it, Matt's a pretty big guy. Matt might be the biggest guy in the field for Revolution. So Matt's going to win that fight with that ad board pretty handily. I think what if you're a Red Bulls fan, what you need to realize is someone on the Red Bulls team needs to pull Reyes aside and go, listen, hey, kid, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Knock that stuff off. Because 6 minutes later, he basically does the exact same thing again. And he looks like incredulous, like, I didn't do anything. Guys, it is not 1980. You can't just go in and just barge through everyone. Even by CONCACAF standards, internationally, those I would hope would be yellow cards because they're really obvious. You shove someone out of bounds, point blank, on the sideline, and then you absolutely crush the guy 2-footed on a standing tackle. It's 2021. Those are going to be yellow cards. And you will find a handful of referees who will look at, I think, more so the second one, when he kind of sort of jumps down onto Heel's ankle. That's one where you might actually say, hey, you know what? That's actually more dangerous than shoving someone into the ad boards because that's how you break bones and stuff. The ad boards aren't always in every single position, so it's a little hard to judge game to game, how those affect different stadiums and things. I think the action of just shoving him out of bounds without the ball is what it is. It was a yellow card. And I think Bruce was right, and the referee was right on both accounts.
So murder is just a yellow, according to Jake. Gotcha.
Yes,
that's what it is.
Listen, playoff hockey, 5-minute major for boarding. I mean, I don't think we've seen one yet this year.
40 to life in the court system, but only a yellow card on the soccer. Wrapping us up here, David Sibilian asks us, if Carlos Heel is an MVP candidate, how many goals does he need to score to become an MLS MVP? And I actually did some research, and by that I just mean I pulled it up on my phone, but I compared this to Lee Wynn's 2014 season. He had 18 goals, but only 5 assists, so even that is not a great comp for Carlos Heel, because we are going to see more assists than goals probably from Carlos Heel this season. I will kick it to Matt first. This is a very tough question because obviously voters favor the goal scorers. But what do you think Carlos has to hit goal-wise or goal plus assist-wise to win MVP?
Yeah, it's tough to find the exact number because, like you said, the voters do tend to be very goal-centric on these things. I would expect him to at least need to reach double digits to really be considered, unless he does something like full-on break the assist record. Then maybe someone would notice that, hey, Carlos Heel is the most valuable person on any team. He's really holding this thing together. But yeah, probably double digits at a minimum to. And
for the record, I looked this up before the episode. The MLS record for assists is 26 by Carlos Valderrama with the Tampa Bay Mutiny in 2000. And then I think second place is there's 2 people tied at second for 20. So I think if he gets to the 20 assist threshold, we might be talking here. If he puts up a 10-20 season, that might be good enough. But I think double digits minimum is a very good threshold. Probably 15, probably if we want to get in the conversation. Jake, what are your thoughts? Do you think there's a magic number Carlos Heel has to hit?
No, I mean I think 10-20 would be a very good threshold. I don't know if Carlos is going to score that many goals in open play. We'll have to sort of see. I mean, obviously he's going to score a handful from the spot if he's the designated PK taker. I thought, did Pozuelo win it last year or 2 years ago?
He won it last year, yeah.
He had like a 10-10 type of season last year, and he won it. And I thought that was very deserving. And I would classify him practically as a midfielder, at least an attacking midfielder. So I don't necessarily think that it's impossible. 10 and 15 might do it in the long run, but I would like to think that he's probably going to have more than 15 assists, Carlos Heel, if the Revolution strike rate starts going up here just a little bit. But it's a very interesting question. If someone goes out, if Chicharito goes out and scores, 30 goals for the Galaxy, what is the number that you have to make up? Would 10 and 20 be enough? Because then you've got 30 combined goals and assists going up against 30 goals, and for me, the MVP award oftentimes is the Golden Ball award. Who is the best player? Who had the best season? If we're talking about who's the most valuable, it's hard for me to imagine the difference between 2020 for the Revs without Carlos Gil, 2021 with the Revs in Carlos Gil, and seeing, yes, he's clearly more valuable than about 99.9% of players in the league. But again, my definition for that is very different than what the voters are. And I think the voters are going to shade more towards the goal scorers, as they tend to do anyway from a national standpoint. But I think the way that Carlos Gil is playing and the attention that he's getting, particularly those gifts we keep highlighting at the end where he just completely dusts someone, I think that those are going to be far more important than we think here in the long run. If he's doing that every week, people notice those things. I think with the social media now, they see every week, Carlos Gil in stoppage time, still playing, full out, running the counterattack, leaving opponents in his wake. Those are things that'll help, create a lasting image, as well as if the Revolution are the number one team in the East, Supporter Shield contender, make a good playoff, or all those sort of things kind of sort of help, because I always sort of felt that Lee Wynn kind of sort of got hosed because the Revs, weren't as high of a seed as they could have been for some of those playoff runs.
Just for reference too, because Pozuelo is probably the best comp. He had 9 goals and 10 assists in 23 games last year, and so he was still, I think, 5 goals off the pace of the Golden Boot. So he still is bagging some goals a little bit. So maybe a 15-15 season from Gil puts him in the conversation. Maybe a 10-20 season. I think goals plus assists might be a better metric, and I think
and it's so hard because last year is so hard to judge as well, because last year. But yeah, I think if you're going to see the types of the plays that Carlos Gil is making week in, week out, even though he didn't have the same impact on the score sheet as, say, Traustason did, or Bou or Buxa did, that week in, week out, you're still seeing him as a dominant force. I think more people are catching on to the expected goals and expected assist numbers, which, as we've seen, the Revolution are sometimes underperforming in those categories, mostly because I think Carlos is just that amazing and generates ridiculous numbers. So.
Yep. So, well, either way, I think he's in the MLS MVP conversation. He is getting some national attention, so he's certainly on pace to start the season. And he leads the league in key passes, which is also a very good indication. So that wraps us up. Guys, Matt, I'll start with you. Where can people find you on social media? Where can people find the Midnight Riders on social media as well?
If you really want to find me, you can find me at 321 Matt on Twitter. I almost never tweet, though. I'm not really an interesting follow. Follow the Midnight Riders instead. Much better account. We're at Midnight Riders on Twitter, at Midnight Riders 1995 on Facebook, on Instagram, and or at midnightriders.com, where you can also sign up for a membership. It's only $10, very low barrier to entry, and that gets you into the cool tailgate lot where all the fun happens. And all that money helps. That's what keeps supporters culture in New England thriving. That turns into TIFO and all sorts of cool stuff. So follow the Midnight Riders.
And also make sure you check out the Clean Sheets for Clean Sheets initiative. Jake, where can people find you on social media?
I don't know if anyone wants to, but you can also attempt to find me at Catanese43, at the Bent Musket. We've been, I think, doing fairly well with the writing the past couple of weeks. Not something sometimes a little hard for me to do, waking up from naps all the time at weird hours and stuff. But it's always easier on the weekends when I'm off and I can actually watch the games in full and absorb everything and not try and watch things in 15-minute highlights or chunks and things like that, and getting the full experience from distraught, agony, and terrible all the way up to no, don't worry, we got this. Really, really helpful to enjoy that with the fans in its entirety as it happens, as opposed to 7 or 8 hours later when I normally do it.
Glad you got the whole game, Jake. And always there's always a refereeing controversy when we bring you on. So I'm glad you were available.
Well, I don't think this was a controversy. I think Andres Reyes was rightfully sent off. I don't think there was no controversy here, I don't think.
Well, if he doesn't have the second yellow a little bit later, I think that if it's 11-11, I think a lot of people look at that push into the boards as potentially a red.
Yeah.
But you say it's not a controversy, and Bruce said it's not a controversy.
I don't think so. I don't think it's a controversy. We have bigger fish to fry. People are still sliding into the goalkeepers at all hours of the day, and I don't understand how these things aren't getting carded. But that's another story here.
Forget about the murders. Think about the people sliding into goalkeepers.
Yes.
You can follow us at Revolution Recap on Twitter. And also please like our Revolution Recap Facebook and Instagram pages. Still trying to hit that 100 mark on Instagram, guys. Come on. I know our listeners have Instagram pages. You just haven't found us yet. Search us on Revolution Recap. We are there. Please give us a like on Instagram. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or wherever podcasts are available. And while you are there, please make sure you rate and review us 5 stars. We will be back next week to recap another hopeful win at Cincinnati. Knock on wood. I think we will be back with a podcast next weekend. Not 100% sure since it's the holiday weekend, but we will try to have another one. If not, we will talk to you guys after the international break. Until then, thank you all for listening, and go Revs.